The great hall of the Galactic Assembly was bigger than any building on Earth. Its walls stretched up so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Lights from 1,000 different worlds glowed in patterns that human eyes could barely understand. And in the middle of all this beauty, Admiral Catherine Cole stood alone on a small platform. Feeling very small indeed, she was 52 years old. With gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much disappointment, her blue uniform was perfect, every button polished, every medal in place. But none of that mattered to the aliens watching her from their high seats. The Valorians sat at the very top of the hall. They were tall beings, almost 9 feet, with skin that looked like living crystal. When light hit them, they sparkled like diamonds. Their leader, High Arbiter Krethvos, had 4 eyes that glowed with a soft purple light. Right now, all 4 of those eyes looked at Catherine with something close to amusement. "The human speaks again," Krethvos said. His voice was deep, and the translator machines turned his alien words into English. "Tell us, Admiral, what does your little planet want this time?" Catherine kept her face calm. She had practiced this moment for years. "Distinguished members of the Assembly," she said, "humanity comes before you with a simple request. We ask for the same rights that every other species enjoys. We ask to travel freely through the hyperlane networks. We ask to trade with other worlds. We ask to be treated as equals." Laughter filled the hall. It came from every direction, from beings of every shape and size. The Zathani, who looked like giant insects with too many eyes, clicked their mandibles in their version of amusement. The Morvathi, who floated in tanks of water because they could not survive in air, sent out waves of telepathic mockery that made Catherine's head hurt. Krethvos repeated, and his crystal face seemed to smile. "You live for less than a century. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are weak. Your planet is small and unimportant. What could you possibly offer the galaxy that would make you our equals?" Catherine had heard these words before. Every human diplomat had heard them for 300 years. Ever since the first alien ship arrived in Earth's solar system. Back then, humanity had been excited. They had believed that contact with alien life would bring a new age of wonder and progress. They had been wrong. The aliens had looked at humanity and seen nothing worth respecting. They had placed Earth under something called the Protection Mandate, which sounded nice, but really meant that humans were prisoners in their own little corner of space. They could not expand to new worlds. They could not develop certain technologies. They could not do anything that might one day make them a threat to the established order. And so humanity had waited, and planned, and prepared. "We offer our patience," Catherine said quietly. More laughter. But Catherine noticed that Krethvos did not laugh this time. His 4 eyes narrowed slightly, as if he sensed something different in her tone. Far away, on Earth, General Marcus Webb stood in an underground bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. The bunker was old, built over 200 years ago, and it had been expanded many times since then. Now it stretched for miles in every direction, filled with equipment that no alien had ever seen. Marcus was 60 years old, with a face like carved stone and hands that had known hard work. He had given his entire life to the military, just like his father and his father's father. But unlike them, he would see the end of humanity's long wait. "Show me the status," he said. Dr. Linda Patterson, the lead scientist of Project Horizon, pulled up a holographic display. She was small and thin, with white hair and eyes that sparkled with intelligence. She had been working on this project for 40 years, ever since she was a young woman fresh out of university. "All Phoenix devices are in position," she said. "We have placed them in every major system controlled by the Valorians, the Zathani, and the Morvathi. They are completely undetectable. Even if the aliens knew what to look for, they would never find them." Marcus nodded slowly. "And the effect? When activated, each device will disrupt the fusion process at the core of its target star. The star will not explode. It will simply go out like a candle in the wind. Any planets orbiting that star will freeze within days. All life will end." The words hung in the air, heavy and terrible. Marcus had known this for years, but hearing it still made his stomach tight. "We are not murderers," he said quietly. "No," Linda agreed. "We are survivors. And this is our insurance policy. If the galaxy will not accept us as friends, they will accept us as equals. Because the only alternative is death for everyone. Back at the assembly, Catherine was finishing her speech. The laughter had faded, replaced by something else. The aliens were looking at her differently now. She had not begged. She had not pleaded. She had simply stated humanity's request and waited for their response. High Arbiter, Krethvos leaned forward in his seat. Your patience, you say. That is all you offer? The patience of a species that lives and dies in the blink of an eye? Our patience has lasted 300 years, Catherine replied. How many of your years is that, High Arbiter? How many generations of your people have been born and died while humanity waited? The question seemed to surprise him. Valorians lived for thousands of years. To them, 300 years was nothing. But Catherine had made her point. Humanity had endured their contempt for longer than most humans could even imagine. Your request is denied, Krethvos said finally. As it has always been denied. Return to your little worlds, Admiral. Be grateful that we allow you to exist at all. Catherine bowed her head just slightly. I understand. But I must warn you, High Arbiter. This was humanity's last request, made in peace. The next time we speak, things will be very different. She turned and walked out of the Great Hall, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Behind her, 1,000 alien eyes watched her go. And for the first time in 300 years, some of them felt something other than contempt. They felt the first small stirring of fear, Lieutenant. Daniel Morgan was waiting for Catherine outside the hall. He was young, only 28, with dark skin and worried eyes. He had served as her aide for 3 years, and he had never seen her look so calm after an assembly meeting. Admiral, he said, what happens now? Catherine looked up at the alien stars above them. Somewhere out there, hidden in the darkness between worlds, humanity's secret weapons waited, silent, patient, ready.
No,
she said. We give them one more chance. And if they refuse, we show them what human patience really means. She pulled out her communicator and sent a single message to Earth. Prepare Phoenix. Final phase begins tomorrow. The galaxy had laughed at humanity for 300 years. It had mocked them, dismissed them, and forgotten them. But the laughter was about to end. And when it did, the stars themselves would tremble. The history of humanity's shame was written in tears and broken dreams. Every child on Earth learned it in school. Every adult carried it in their heart. It's like a wound that would not heal. In the year 2247, everything changed. A Valorian scout ship appeared near Jupiter, and humanity discovered they were not alone in the universe. The people of Earth had celebrated. They had danced in the streets and looked up at the sky with hope in their eyes. After thousands of years of wondering, they finally had their answer. Other life existed out there among the stars. Commander Samuel Drake had been the first human to meet the aliens. He was a pilot, brave and optimistic, and he had flown his small ship out to greet the Valorians with a smile on his face. He had extended his hand in friendship the way humans had done for thousands of years. The Valorians had not taken his hand. They had not even looked at it. Instead, they had scanned his ship with their instruments, measured his brain activity, and recorded every detail of human biology. Then they had sent a report back to their empire. Primitive species, the report had said. No significant technology. No military threat. Recommended action. Protection mandate Category 7. Allow continued existence, but prevent expansion. Samuel Drake had died an old man, still waiting for the aliens to shake his hand. His granddaughter, Captain Rachel Drake, now served in the human fleet, carrying his disappointment and his hope with her wherever she went, in the centuries that followed first contact. Humanity had tried everything to change their situation. They had sent their best diplomats to the Galactic Assembly. Ambassador Gregory Hart had spent 40 years living on the alien station, speaking to every species who would listen, begging for humanity to be treated fairly. He had accomplished nothing. He had died alone, far from Earth, in a small room that the Assembly provided out of pity. Humanity had tried to make friends with other small species, ones who were also treated badly by the great powers. Ambassador Maria Vasquez had traveled to a dozen worlds, seeking allies who might stand with humanity against the Valorians. But the great powers had noticed. They had applied pressure. One by one, every potential friend had backed away, too scared to risk angering the galaxy's rulers. Humanity had even tried to show their strength. In 2389, Admiral Victor Reyes had led 12 human ships into disputed space. He had demanded the right to pass through, a right that galactic law technically gave him. The Morvathi had refused. When Reyes tried to push forward anyway, the Morvathi had destroyed all 12 ships in less than 4 minutes. 3,000 humans died that day, and the Galactic Assembly had ruled that humanity was the aggressor. 6 months later, 100 Valorian warships appeared in orbit around Earth. Their weapons were pointed at every human city. The message was clear: stay in your place or die. Humanity had apologized. They had accepted even more restrictions. They had bowed their heads and pretended to be the harmless primitives the aliens believed them to be, but in secret. They had started planning Project Horizon began. It's a whisper between a handful of scientists and military officers who refused to accept humanity's fate. They met in hidden rooms, spoke in coded messages, and dreamed of a future where humans would not be slaves to alien contempt. Dr. Eleanor Simmons had first proposed the idea. She was a physicist, one of the smartest people ever born on Earth, and she had realized something important. The aliens did not watch humanity closely because they did not consider humans a threat. They had installed monitoring systems in human space, but those systems only looked for obvious dangers. They did not look for slow, patient, secret work. If they refused to see us as dangerous, Eleanor had written in her private journal, then we will become dangerous without them seeing us. The project had grown slowly over many years. Resources were moved in tiny amounts, never enough to trigger alien sensors. Facilities were built underground, inside asteroids, in the dark spaces between stars where nobody looked. Scientists lived their entire lives in those hidden places, never seeing sunlight, never telling anyone what they were doing. Generations passed. Parents taught their children. Those children grew up and taught their own children. The flame of hope passed from hand to hand, kept alive through the long, dark years of waiting. General Marcus Webb's grandfather had been one of the first officers assigned to Project. His father had continued the work, and now Marcus himself stood in the command center, looking at the result of 240 years of secret effort. The Phoenix devices were small, no bigger than a human fist, but each one contained technology that no alien species had ever imagined. They could manipulate the fusion reactions at the heart of a star. They could reach across the galaxy instantly, ignoring the normal limits of space and time. And when activated, they could turn off a star like blowing out a candle. How did we do it? Marcus had once asked Dr. Linda Patterson, "How did we develop technology that even the Valorians do not have?" Linda had smiled, because they were not looking. Because they thought we were too primitive to matter. And because humans are very good at finding ways to survive. We had been doing it for millions of years. Ice ages, plagues, disasters. We always find a way. This is just the latest example. Marcus looked at the display showing the location of every Phoenix device. There were thousands of them, hidden near every important star in alien space. If he gave the order, entire civilizations would go dark. Billions would die. "We are not murderers," he said again, as he had said many times before. "No," Linda agreed. "We are survivors. And the threat of this weapon is more powerful than the weapon itself. Once the aliens know what we can do, they will have no choice but to treat us as equals. Because if they try to destroy us, they will be destroyed as well. Mutual destruction. It is the only thing that creates true equality." On the Galactic Assembly Station, Admiral Catherine Cole was preparing for her final meeting with the alien leaders. Lieutenant Daniel Morgan stood beside her, his young face tense with worry. "Admiral," he said, "what if they do not listen? What if they call our bluff?" Catherine looked at him with steady eyes. "It is not a bluff, Daniel. The Phoenix devices are real. If they force our hand, we will use them. But billions would die. Yes. Including us. The Valorians would destroy Earth in response. But they would die too. And somehow, I do not think they are willing to accept that trade. She paused. No species willingly chooses extinction. Not even one as arrogant as the Valorians. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "How long have you known about Project Horizon?" "Since I was 16 years old," Catherine said. "My mother told me." Her mother told her. "Every generation has carried this secret, waiting for the day when we would finally be ready. That day has come, Daniel. Tomorrow, everything changes." She looked out at the stars, at the vast alien station that had been built to remind species like humanity how small and unimportant they were. "They laughed at our patience," she said softly. "They thought it was weakness. But patience is not weakness. It is strategy. It is survival. It is the knowledge that time is on your side. If only you can wait long enough." She turned back to Daniel, and for the first time, he saw something in her eyes that scared him a little. Hope. Pure, fierce, burning hope. "Tomorrow," she said, "we stop waiting." The great hall of the Galactic Assembly was more crowded than Admiral Catherine Cole had ever seen it. Word had spread that the humans were going to make some kind of important statement. The alien species had come to watch, expecting entertainment. They expected to see the primitives beg one more time and then be sent away with nothing. As always, Catherine stood on the central platform, her uniform perfect, her face calm. Around her, thousands of aliens watched from their seats high above. The Valorians sparkled like living diamonds. The Zethani clicked and buzzed in their sealed pods. The Morvathi floated in their water tanks, their tentacles waving slowly. High Arbiter Krethvos sat in the highest seat of all, his 4 purple eyes fixed on Catherine with lazy interest. He had ruled the Galactic Assembly for 600 years. He had seen countless species come before him asking for things they would never receive. Humans were just the latest in a long line of failures. "The Assembly recognizes the representative of the Terran Federation," the automated voice announced. "You may speak." Catherine stepped forward. Her heart was beating fast, but her voice was steady. "Distinguished members of the Galactic Assembly," she began, "I stand before you today not to beg, not to plead. I stand before you to deliver a warning." A murmur went through the hall. This was different from the usual human speeches. The aliens leaned forward, curious despite themselves. "For 300 years," Catherine continued, "humanity has asked for equal treatment. For 300 years, we have been refused. We have been mocked. We have been told that we are too primitive, too weak, too short-lived to matter." She paused, looking around the vast chamber. "We have accepted your judgment. We have followed your rules. We have been patient." Her voice hardened. "Our patience has ended." Krethvos raised one crystalline hand. "Is this a threat, Admiral? Do you truly stand before this assembly and threaten the greatest powers in the galaxy?" "I stand before this assembly," Catherine said, "to inform you of a simple fact. Humanity is no longer helpless. We have developed a technology that gives us the power to destroy every star system you control. Every world. Every life." Silence fell over the hall. Then, slowly, laughter began. It started with the Zethani, their mandibles clicking in amusement. It spread to other species, filling the chamber with the sound of alien mockery. But Krethvos did not laugh. His 4 eyes studied Catherine with new intensity. "Explain," he said. Catherine reached into her uniform and pulled out a small device, a simple communicator. Instantly, security systems activated throughout the hall. Weapons aimed at her from every direction. Guards moved toward the platform. "This device," Catherine said calmly, "is connected to a network of machines we call Phoenix. There are thousands of them, hidden near every important star in your territory. They have been there for decades, waiting. You never detected them because you never thought to look. We were just primitives, after all. What could primitives possibly achieve?" The laughter had stopped. The hall was completely silent now. "Each Phoenix device can manipulate the fusion reaction at the heart of a star. If I send the signal, your stars will begin to die. Not explode. Just fade. Go cold. and every world orbiting those stars will freeze. Krethvos stood slowly. His crystalline body seemed to flicker with agitation. This is impossible. Our scientists would have discovered such technology. Your scientists, Catherine said, did not look. They assumed we were too primitive. They were wrong. You were bluffing. Am I? Catherine held up the communicator. I can send one of two signals with this device. The first signal is the word peace. If I send that signal, our scientists will contact you with information about the Phoenix devices. We will share the technology. We will work together to build a better galaxy. All we ask in return is equal treatment. True equality. No more protection mandate. No more restrictions. She paused. The second signal is the word fire. If I send that signal, your stars begin dying within hours. Your civilizations will end. Billions will die. And Earth. Krethvos demanded. If you attack us, we will destroy your world. Yes, Catherine agreed. You will. And we will die. But so will you. That is the choice I am offering you today. High Arbiter. Equality or mutual destruction. Peace or death for everyone. The hall erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted at each other. Species that had been enemies for millennia suddenly found common ground in their fear. The Zethani retreated into their pods, their pheromones filling the air with the chemical smell of panic. The Morvathi sent out waves of telepathic distress that made every mind in the chamber ache. But Catherine stood calm at the center of it all, holding her small device. Waiting, after several minutes, Krethvos raised his hand for silence. The chaos slowly subsided. How do we know this is not a trick? He asked. How do we know these Phoenix devices exist? You can send your scientists to verify, Catherine said. We will give you the coordinates of one device. Examine it. Test it. But I warn you, do not attempt to deactivate it. The devices are protected. Any tampering will trigger an immediate response. How long do we have to decide? 1 hour. Catherine looked at the clock displayed on the chamber wall. In 1 hour, I will send one of the two signals. Choose wisely. She stepped back from the center of the platform and stood waiting. The clock began to count down. Throughout the chamber, frantic conversations began. The Valorians huddled together, their crystalline voices ringing like bells as they argued. The Zethani hive mind processed the situation, calculating probabilities and outcomes. The Morvathi probed Catherine's mind, seeking any hint of deception. They found none. Ambassador Kira Wells stood at the edge of the platform, watching the chaos with wide eyes. She was young, only 30, and she had never imagined she would witness something like this. Her entire life, she had been taught that humanity was weak, that they could never challenge the great powers, that their only hope was to somehow earn the aliens' respect through good behavior. Now she understood the truth. Respect could not be earned from those who refused to give it. It could only be taken. Admiral, she whispered, are you really prepared to do this? To kill billions? Catherine did not look at her. Her eyes stayed fixed on the alien delegates above. I am prepared to do whatever is necessary to give humanity a future, she said. Our ancestors suffered for 300 years so that we could stand here today. They built the Phoenix devices knowing they might never see them used. They sacrificed everything. I will not waste their sacrifice. 45 minutes remained on the clock when the first vote came in. The Zethani Collective, speaking through their hive speaker, announced that they would support humanity's request for equal status. The mathematics are clear, the hive speaker said. Mutual destruction serves no one. Cooperation is the only logical choice. 30 minutes remained when the Morvathi voted the same way. Their telepaths had searched Catherine's mind and found only truth. She was not bluffing. The Phoenix devices were real, and humanity was prepared to use them. But the vote that mattered most was still to come. The Valorians held more power than all the other species combined. Without their agreement, nothing would change. 20 minutes remained when High Arbiter Krethvos finally spoke again. For thousands of years, he said slowly, the Valorian Empire has guided this galaxy. We have maintained peace. We have prevented wars. We have protected younger species from their own foolishness. He paused, his 4 eyes finding Catherine below. We believed we were right to control others. We believed our age and power gave us that right. We were wrong. A shocked murmur went through the chamber. Humanity's patience has taught us a lesson we should have learned long ago. True peace cannot be built on dominance. True equality cannot be granted by those who hold power. It must be demanded. It must be earned. And humanity has earned it. He straightened, his crystalline form catching the light. The Valorian Empire votes to grant humanity full and equal status in the Galactic Assembly. The protection mandate is ended. From this day forward, humans will be treated as equals. Catherine allowed herself one small smile. Then she lifted her communicator and spoke a single word that echoed through the chamber. Peace. The moment Admiral Catherine Cole said the word peace, everything changed. Not just in the Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly, but across the entire galaxy. On Earth, General Marcus Webb received the signal in the underground bunker. He stood perfectly still for a long moment, looking at the single word on his screen. Then, slowly, he sat down in his chair and put his head in his hands. His shoulders shook. Dr. Linda Patterson, standing beside him, realized he was crying. 240 years, he whispered. My grandfather started this. My father continued it. One spent my whole life preparing for this moment. And now it is done. Linda put her hand on his shoulder. She was crying too. All around the bunker, scientists and soldiers who had given their lives to Project Horizon were embracing, weeping, laughing. The weight they had carried for so long had finally been lifted. We did it, Linda said. We actually did it. Marcus looked up at her with red eyes. No, our ancestors did it. Everyone who came before us, who kept the secret, who worked in the dark, who died without ever seeing this day. They did it. We just finished what they started. Back at the assembly, the chaos had not ended. It had simply changed. Now, instead of fear and anger, the chamber was filled with confusion and questions. Species that had ignored humanity for centuries suddenly wanted to talk. Delegates pushed toward the central platform, trying to reach Catherine, trying to understand what had just happened. High Arbiter Krethvos raised his hand for order, and slowly, the chaos subsided. This assembly will now discuss the terms of humanity's new status, he announced. Admiral Cole, you spoke of sharing technology. What exactly are you offering? Catherine stepped forward. She had prepared for this moment as carefully as she had prepared for everything else. Humanity has developed many technologies in secret over the past 2 centuries, she said. The Phoenix devices are just one example. We have also made advances in medicine, energy production, transportation, and communication. Technologies that could benefit every species in the galaxy. And you will share these freely? Krethvos asked. We will share them with those who treat us as equals. With those who are willing to work with us in good faith. We have no interest in conquest or domination. We simply want what we have always wanted. A fair place among the stars. Ambassador Kira Wells stood beside Catherine, translating her words into the diplomatic language that the assembly preferred. But even through the formal phrases, the meaning was clear. Humanity was offering the galaxy a gift, but that gift came with conditions. The Zathani Hive speaker clicked forward in its pod. The collective is interested in your medical technologies. Our species suffers from a genetic disease that has plagued us for millennia. Can humanity help? We believe so, Catherine replied. Our scientists have been studying your biology in secret for many years. We think we have found a treatment. In secret? The Hive speaker's compound eyes glittered. You have been watching us? We have been watching everyone, Catherine admitted. We had no choice. Knowledge was our only weapon for a long time. We learned everything we could about every species in the galaxy. Their strengths, their weaknesses, their hopes and fears. A murmur went through the chamber. The aliens were beginning to understand just how much they had underestimated humanity. The Morvathi delegate, Depsinger Kalos, spoke next. His telepathic voice echoed in every mind in the chamber. We sensed no deception in your thoughts, Admiral Cole, but we sensed something else. Pain, anger, 300 years of suffering held deep in your heart. How can we trust that humanity will not seek revenge? Catherine was quiet for a moment. Then she answered honestly, "You cannot trust that completely. Not yet. Trust must be built over time, through actions, not words. But I can tell you this. Humanity did not develop the Phoenix devices because we wanted to destroy you. We developed them because we wanted to live. We wanted to survive. We wanted our children to have a future." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings so different from herself that they might have been from different universes. "We do not want revenge. We want peace. Real peace, built on equality and respect. If you give us that, we will be the best friends you have ever had. But if you try to push us back into the shadows, if you try to treat us as primitives again, then yes, we will fight, and we will win." The negotiations continued for hours. Details were argued, agreements were drafted, compromises were made, but the fundamental truth remained unchanged. Humanity had won. Not through war, not through violence, but through patience and preparation and the willingness to take the ultimate risk. When the session finally ended, Catherine returned to the human ship waiting outside the station. Lieutenant Daniel Morgan was there to meet her. His young face was bright with excitement. "Admiral, the news has reached Earth. People are celebrating in the streets. I have never seen anything like it." Catherine nodded, but she did not smile. "The celebration is premature. We have won a battle, not a war. The hard work is just beginning." "What do you mean?" "Equality is not just a word in a treaty," Catherine said. "It must be built, day by day, decision by decision. There will be aliens who hate us for what we have done today. There will be challenges and setbacks. The galaxy will test us, just as it has always tested us." She looked out the window at the stars. "But we have proven something today. We have proven that humanity cannot be dismissed, cannot be ignored, cannot be laughed at." They laughed at our patience. They thought it was weakness. Now they know the truth. On the assembly station, High Arbiter Krethvos sat alone in his priva. Tay chamber. His crystalline form was dim, his four eyes tired. He had lived for 3,000 years, and he had thought he understood the galaxy. Today, he had learned how wrong he was. His aide, a younger Valorian named Vertil, entered the chamber. "High Arbiter," Vertil said, "the other species are asking about the Phoenix devices. They want to know how humanity developed them without our knowledge." Krethvos was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. "They developed them because we were arrogant, because we assumed that a species could not be dangerous simply because they were young, because we laughed at them instead of watching them. Should we have destroyed them when we had the chance? Perhaps, but we did not. And now, it is too late." Krethvos looked at his aide with ancient, weary eyes. "Learn from this, Vertil. Never underestimate a species that has learned to survive. Never mock a species that has learned to wait. And never assume that weakness today means weakness forever." Vertil bowed his head. "Yes, High Arbiter." "The humans have taught us all a lesson," Krethvos continued. "Patience is not weakness. It is strength. It is the ability to endure suffering while preparing for victory. We Valorians live for thousands of years, but we have never learned patience the way humans have." He stood and walked to his window, looking out at the stars that now seemed different than they had this morning. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "they will teach us. Perhaps that is the gift they truly bring to the galaxy. Not their technology, not their weapons, but their patience. Their stubborn, unbreakable will to survive." He turned back to Vertil. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them that the Valorian Empire looks forward to learning from humanity. Tell them that we are sorry for the centuries of contempt, and tell them that we will never laugh at them again." Vertil's eyes widened. "High Arbiter, that would be admitting weakness." "No," Krethvos said. "It would be admitting truth. And truth is never weakness." He looked out at the stars once more, at the vast galaxy that had just been transformed by a species everyone had dismissed as insignificant. "Humanity has earned our respect," he said. Now let us see if we can earn theirs. 5 years had passed since Earth's final warning shook the stars. The galaxy had changed in ways that nobody could have predicted. Admiral Catherine Cole, now retired, stood on a balcony overlooking the new Galactic Unity Center in Geneva. The building was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Its architecture combined human design with elements from a dozen alien cultures. Valorian crystal spires rose beside Zethani, organic domes, and Morvathi, water-filled observation towers. It was beautiful and strange. Behind her, footsteps approached. She turned to find High Arbiter Krethvos walking toward her. He moved slowly, his crystalline body catching the afternoon sunlight. 5 years ago, he had been her enemy. Now, he was something closer to a friend. "Admiral Cole," he said, his translator rendering his words in the warm tone he had learned humans preferred. "I hoped I would find you here." "Just Catherine now," she replied. "I gave up my rank when I retired." "Retirement?" Krethvos made a sound that his translator interpreted as a chuckle. Such a human concept. To stop working while you are still alive. My people do not understand it. Your people live for thousands of years. We only get a few decades. We learn to rest when we can. They stood together in comfortable silence, looking out at the city below. Human cars moved alongside alien vehicles. Children of different species played together in parks that had been designed to accommodate everyone. It was not perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was better than anyone had imagined possible. "I have been thinking about that day," Krethvos said finally. "The day you stood in the assembly and gave us your warning. I've thought about it many times. So have I." "Were you afraid?" Catherine considered the question. "Yes, I was terrified. But I had no choice. Humanity had been waiting for 300 years. If I had failed, all that waiting would have been for nothing. And if we had refused, if we had called your bluff, it was not a bluff." Catherine's voice was quiet but firm. "I would have sent the signal. The Phoenix devices would have activated. Your stars would have died." Krethvos was silent for a long moment. "I know. I sensed it then, and I sense it now. You were prepared to destroy us all, including your own people, to end the humiliation. Not to end the humiliation. To give humanity a future. There is a difference." "Is there?" Catherine turned to face him. Her gray eyes met his, 4 purple ones. "Yes, humiliation can be endured. We proved that for 300 years. But a species with no future, no hope, no chance to grow and learn and become something more, that species is already dead. We were dying slowly under the protection mandate. The Phoenix devices were our only way out." Krethvos nodded slowly. "I have learned much from humanity in these 5 years. Your music, your literature, your history, but the most important thing I have learned is this. You are survivors. You endure things that would break other species. And you do it not through strength or speed or power, but through patience and hope. We had to be," Catherine said. "Our planet tried to kill us. Ice ages, plagues, asteroids, other species might have given up. We just kept going." Below them, a human child ran across the plaza, chasing a ball. A Zethani youngling scuttled after her, its mandibles clicking with joy. The 2 children collided, fell down, and then got up laughing. Their parents, one human and one Zethani, watched with smiles on their faces. "That," Catherine said, pointing at the children, "is why we fought. That is what we were trying to protect. Not revenge. Not pride. Just the chance for our children to grow up in a galaxy that does not hate them." On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Rachel Drake stood on the bridge of her ship, the Horizon. It was a new vessel, built with technology that combined human engineering with Valorian crystal systems and Morvathi biological computing. Its crew was equally mixed, humans working alongside aliens who had once dismissed them as primitives. "Captain," her first officer reported, "we are receiving a distress signal. A colony ship, mixed crew, engines failed. They are drifting toward an asteroid field." Rachel did not hesitate. Set course. Maximum speed. Captain, that will take us into Zathani space. We do not have permission. Then get permission. And if they refuse, we go anyway. No one dies alone in space. Not anymore. Her first officer, a young Valorian named Kethrel, nodded with what Rachel had learned to recognize as respect. Yes, Captain. The Horizon leaped into hyperspace, racing to save lives that 5 years ago would not have been worth saving. That was the new galaxy. That was what humanity had helped build. Back on Earth. General Marcus Webb stood in a cemetery outside the Rocky Mountain bunker. The tombstones stretched in neat rows, hundreds of them, each one marking a scientist or soldier who had given their life to Project Horizon. Dr. Linda Patterson stood beside him. She was older now, her white hair thinner, but her eyes still sparkled with the intelligence that had helped save humanity. We should tell people, Marcus said, about all of them, about the sacrifices they made. Someday we will. When the time is right, for now, let them rest in peace. Linda looked at the graves. They knew they would never see this day. They worked anyway. They kept the secret anyway. That is what makes them heroes. Marcus nodded. He had known some of these people. Had watched them grow old and die, still hoping, still believing, still working. They had passed their knowledge to the next generation, and the next, and the next. A chain of hope stretching across centuries. We would not be here without them, he said. No, we would be slaves. Or extinct. They gave us our future. In the Galactic Assembly, a new plaque had been installed. It hung in the Great Hall, in a place of honor where every delegate could see it. The words were written in 100 languages, but the meaning was the same in all of them. Who endured, who hoped, and who in the end taught the galaxy that patience is the greatest strength of all. Ambassador Kira Wells had proposed the plaque. The Assembly had approved it unanimously. Even species who still resented humanity's rise to power had to admit that they had earned their place among the stars. Catherine Cole stood before the plaque now, reading the words she had helped write. Behind her, the great hall bustled with activity. Delegates from 1,000 species went about their business, arguing and negotiating and building the future together. Somewhere in that crowd, a young human diplomat was making her first speech to the Assembly. Somewhere else, a Valorian scientist was sharing research with human colleagues. Somewhere else still, a Morvathi artist was teaching human children to create music with their minds. The galaxy was not perfect. It never would be. There were still conflicts, still prejudices, still moments when old hatreds flared up. But it was better than it had been. And it was getting better every day. Catherine thought about her mother, who had served on the day the punishment fleet arrived at Earth. She thought about her daughter, who now commanded a starship that traveled freely among the stars. She thought about all the generations in between, who had carried the burden of humanity's shame and the hope of humanity's future. We did it, she whispered to them, to all the ghosts of the past. We finally did it. Outside the assembly station, the stars burned bright and eternal. Among them, somewhere, the Phoenix devices still waited, silent, patient, ready. They would never be used now, but they would never be forgotten either. They were a reminder of what humanity was capable of when pushed to the edge. A reminder that the species the galaxy had laughed at had learned to laugh last, and somewhere in the dark between stars, a message traveled toward Earth. It carried news of another species that had been living under alien contempt. Another civilization that had been told they were too weak and too primitive to matter. They had heard about humanity. They had heard about Earth's final warning, and they wanted to know, could humanity teach them patience too? Catherine smiled when she heard about the message. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was helping it change. Not through conquest, not through fear, but through the simple, powerful example of a species that had refused to give up. They had laughed at humanity's patience. They were not laughing anymore. The stars remembered. And so did humanity. The end.